Ferdinand Fellenberg, young lord of House Fellenberg, the most prosperous family in the Armenian Empire, was a student in the Imperial Academy's Department of Magic. He came from a solid, top-tier education. On top of that, the guy was born rich. Life handed him everything from the start. Obsessed with money, he tells everyone that nothing in this world is more valuable than cash. He used to spend his days talking to merchants. Well, talking is one way to put it. He actually spent his time chewing out the poor guys who couldn't hit their targets, which, by the way, he always expected to be doubled. But like the saying goes, trouble comes out of nowhere. One day, he was talking to a servant about a certain merchant who wasn't really improving much, even though the guy claimed his sales had increased a lot. Ferdinand agreed, but still didn't think it was enough. And right then, out of nowhere, the guy gets struck by lightning, just like that. The shock was so intense that his expression got all twisted, and in that exact moment, a soul approached him. He asked who it was while the soul smiled happily, thrilled to have found someone to possess. Suddenly, this big hand reached for his head and started pouring some incomprehensible stuff into him. Ferdinand instinctively knew it was trying to take over his body. He gathered a bit of mana to launch an attack, and even though the thing came in like thunder, surprisingly, it wasn't that hard to push it away. Still, a part of it had been absorbed into his body, and at that moment, unfamiliar memories started flooding his mind. Ferdinand opened his eyes in panic, and someone asked if the young lord was okay. He looked completely scorched. Hard to say he was doing fine. Then strange writings began to appear in front of him. Prophecies about the end of a world, the arrival of 72 demons, him getting kicked out of his family. On top of that, he'd end up a beggar and lose all his money. The kid's future was worse than anything he'd imagined. Losing the whole world, sure, that was bad, but going broke, that was just unbearable. From that day on, he started trying to figure out what had happened, what that thing was that tried to possess him, and how those memories ended up inside him. Unfortunately, he never found any real answers. But one thing he was sure of, there was a very good chance that those prophecies might actually come true. Why? Because ever since he received those memories, he'd been using them to make tons of money. The problem was, he wasn't happy about it, because that meant the memories were probably real. And if they were, then one day, he'd lose everything. He offers him a cup of coffee, but Ferdinand turns it down. He picks up a little newspaper, takes a glance, and the guy keeps an eye on him. Then he asks if the kid's been feeling weird lately, and Ferdinand says no. But the guy's certain something's off. He's been looking seriously troubled for about half a year now. Out of nowhere, Ferdinand just starts drooling like he's lost in some random thought. And lately, he's been making impulsive decisions, which is totally unlike him, since he used to be the king of negotiation. The guy is sure it's got something to do with that lightning strike. Ferdinand stays quiet, lost in thought. He doesn't want to admit it, but all that happened back then is still eating away at him, because he knows full well he's going to end up a beggar. That's when he spots a name in the paper, Ein Armian, and just like that, he gets pissed. The bastard had actually shown up. Ferdinand storms off saying he's heading south. The guy just stands there, confused, thinking this kid's really not all there lately. The Imperial Academy sits on a remote island, massive and vast, but definitely built entirely with magic. Everything there is artificial, no doubt about it. Still, our boy is there today because it's finally time to find out whether the prophecy is true. Out of everything that was written in that prophecy, 3 parts stood out the most to him. The part where he loses all his money, the part where he becomes a beggar, and that third part, Yak again, where he ends up broke. Those 3 futures alone already felt unbearable. Well, actually, there's more to it. There's one version of the future where he becomes a beggar, sure, but there's also another where 72 demons from the Solomon River invade the land. And then there's a third thing that happens. Ein Armian, the one who's destined to save the world from those demons. That name is known across the whole empire. Why? Because he's a direct descendant of Emperor Calenus Armian. House Armian are literally the ones who founded this entire place. That was 1,000 years ago, though, and nowadays they've lost all the power they once had. Still, the prophecy clearly states that the one known as Ein Armian is the protagonist of the story. After passing the entrance exam for the school, he comes to this region to follow a map given to him by the Emperor. From that moment on, he enters the academy and countless events unfold, all of which were written in that novel Ferdinand got implanted in his mind. Which means that if Ferdinand runs into that guy here, the prophecies have to be real. But the reason he's looking for Ein isn't just because he's the prophecy hero. He's also tied directly to Ferdinand's miserable future. He's the one who hands over the letter saying Ferdinand's been expelled from school. And the worst part? Ferdinand has no clue why that bastard was responsible for his downfall. All the text said was that Ein Armian saw Ferdinand Fellenberg as something. It wasn't clear, but because of that, he found him repulsive. With writing that vague and twisted, there's no way to know what caused what. But on the surface, it seemed to be something about Ferdinand siding with demons or something along those lines. He hops off his horse, looks around, and asks if this is the place. There was supposed to be a dungeon left behind by the first emperor of the Armian family. Inside it, there was said to be a sword that held the spirit of Royal Knight Gardner. Assuming the book was right, that sword is what Ein would use to begin his fight against the demons. If it weren't for that boy's destiny to save the world, Ferdinand would have already killed him, especially since that guy is the one responsible for the future, where Ferdinand ends up on the streets. But right then, he smells something strange, blood. He glances to the side and sees a plant stained bright red. Just like the story said, he ran into a croaker before finding the dungeon. These creatures are the apex predators of the swamps, and Fernan, who had just joined the academy, didn't stand a chance. And with that, it was becoming more and more clear. The prophecy was starting to come true. Just as Fernan decides to take a look inside the dungeon, that bastard Armian suddenly shows up right in front of him. Fernan immediately asks what he's doing there instead of taking the academy's entrance exam like he's supposed to. Aint wants to know how Fernan even knows who he is, and Fernan replies that everyone knows who the descendant of the Emperor is. But the blonde kid has no idea who Fernan is. Fernan introduces himself, and it seems like he doesn't have the best reputation. The blonde kid gets startled and asks if he's that infamous Fernan Fellenberg. Fernan's expression drops a bit, and he tells him to show some respect. Then he asks if he's hurt because he fought a croaker. Aint says yes, he's covered in blood. Right then and there, Fernan tosses him a high-grade potion and mentions that it's worth 10 times more than a regular one. Aint is about to say he doesn't have the money to pay for something like that, but Fernan tells him to relax. He's not someone who needs money. Yeah, take that. Total humiliation for the poor guy. Then Fernan adds that the kid has imperial blood. He's sure this could be seen as an investment. The blonde kid stares at him for a moment, thinking that maybe Fernan isn't as crazy as the rumors say. He thanks him, but Fernan's already realizing that this guy is starting to cost him money. That potion was stupid expensive. So he starts lecturing him, going off about how valuable that potion really is, and tells him he owes him a lifelong favor. Then he waves goodbye and Aint stays there, still thanking him, saying one day he'll repay the favor. But of course, Fernan's just standing off to the side, watching in pain as the bastard downs a potion that cost him hours and hours of work. Not long after Aint enters the dungeon, Fernan follows him. He can't believe it, but there really is a dungeon in a place this remote. What confuses him is the number of magical lamps still working inside. When he picks one up, he realizes it's a special lamp that absorbs mana from the environment to stay lit forever. That thing's worth a fortune. And of course, since Aint's broke, he didn't even bother to take it. Already shows how naive the kid is. Fernan remembers from the prophecy that this boy comes into this place while badly wounded. He starts chugging weak potions to keep himself going. But the problem is the kid's practically holding his ribs in with one hand. Those weak potions aren't doing a thing. Even so, the stubborn idiot presses forward. Then suddenly, his eyes glow, an instinctive reaction. Up on an altar is a plain-looking sword. Plain-looking? Please, it's a massive, gleaming sword shining under the light. How is that plain? Aint grips it tightly, and in that instant, its light fills the entire cave. When Aint opens his eyes, he's no longer in the dungeon. Fernan sees it happen. The kid didn't leave the room, and he's not anywhere inside. He just vanished. The stone still shows the mark where the sword used to be. And all of this just pisses Fernan off even more because it means the prophecy keeps unfolding. Which also means that any day now, the letter of expulsion will arrive. He'll be stripped of his title as head of House Fellenberg. He'll be publicly humiliated. His father will tell him never to show his face again. Like, what the hell is that? That's basically a nice way of saying, I'll fight for your life, kid. Fernan scratches his head. He can't believe he's really walking straight toward poverty. What kind of cursed future is this? Aint Armian is the protagonist, the hero who's going to save everyone, and also the one who's going to ruin Fernan's entire life. Still, he can't deny it. The boy is like a rising stock that keeps gaining value. The real issue is that their personalities don't match at all. Fernan only cares about money and profit. Aint Armian is all about honor and justice. If Fernan lets his real personality show too much, he might lose his chance to build any kind of connection with the guy. He says it's a tough problem. The butler asks what he's talking about. Fernan asks Hyde what he thinks. There's a certain investment opportunity that could bring in a ton of money if they go for it. Hyde says he'd invest without hesitation. Fernan agrees, but then asks, what if the people managing this investment have a personality that completely clashes with his own? Hyde answers that it's not a problem. The Duke always said even personalities can be aligned when money's involved. That makes Fernan pause and think, yeah, he's right. No need to overcomplicate things. The principles were the same. Invest, take the risk, and make a fortune. Clashing personalities could be overlooked when the potential profit was that high. Still, he needed more information, and he needed it from Aint. So right then, he says he's heading out. The butler tries to remind him that they have a meeting scheduled with someone later, but the boy's already gone. At the academy, your dorm depends on your rank. If you're in the top 10, you're living like royalty. Between ranks 11 and 30, you still get a decent room. But fall out of the top 30, you're basically sleeping next to the dumpster. Sure, they tried to make everything look ominous, but it's still a huge castle. That desperate voice screaming about how disgraceful the dorm is, that's the spirit of Gardner. The one from the sword ain't picked up. The spirit's already laying into him, saying there's no way a descendant ended up with talent this pathetic. He keeps ranting, saying it's a total embarrassment. If the Emperor knew about this, he'd snap the necks of every demon in sight. That makes Aint pause. Why is he bringing up demons? The spirit replies that he wouldn't have appeared if demons weren't involved somehow. Aint mutters that he won't be able to do anything. He's way too weak, just started at the academy, which only makes the spirit even more furious. To be brought back by someone this fragile, What a disgrace. Ain't pushes back, saying it's the first emperor's fault. He was the one who abolished the imperial succession system and replaced it with the current setup, where the 7 noble houses vote. Our guy's family, Armian, is right up there at the top. Apparently, the emperor also donated most of his land to the empire. Wait, hold on. Armian is ain't. That means our main guy is Fellenberg. The blonde kid goes on saying that because of all that, they even lost their sword techniques. Basically, he's summarizing the past century for the spirit. But seeing how much of a mess things are now, he tries to lift the spirit's mood a little. He still has potential. And besides, the spirit could help him restore the family's honor. Maybe showing up now is all part of the emperor's plan. Then someone knocks at the door, calling out for Ain Armian. From the voice alone, you can already guess who it is, right? Yep, it's him. That smug bastard's already standing there in a suit, smiling like always. He asks if Ain's busy. Ain says not really. Nothing urgent. Fernan says it's a good time then. They should go somewhere a bit quieter. It's way too chaotic in there. Ain tells him to wait a second. He just woke up. But Fernan cuts him off, reminding him who gave him the potion, and tells him to get moving. Obviously, Ain's trying to hide the spirit that's floating right behind him, but it's likely only he can see it. Now the spirit wants to know who that guy is at the door. Ain explains it's a boy from the Fellenberg family. Even the spirit, who just got revived, knows exactly who they are, filthy rich, and nothing else. He warns Ain't not to get involved with people like that. All they've got is money. They're not strong. They're not worth it. Ain't figures Fernan's here to collect payment for the potion. But instead, the first thing Fernan brings up is the sword. Oh yeah, he brought it along for their little chat. Ain't explains that he just feels safer carrying it around lately. But Fernan already knows that sword is the one holding the spirit of Gardner. Ain't asks why Fernan wanted to meet him. Fernan says it's nothing major. He just invited him to grab a bite. But Ain's hesitant. The place looks way too expensive. Fernan replies that you can't turn down a senior's invitation, and Ain't agrees to go. So the two of them are sitting there, checking things out while Fernan quietly observes. The kid seemed kind and easygoing, but Fernan knew he was trying to hide something. He goes ahead and asks what the boy plans to do after graduating from the academy. Usually, people come to a place like this to expand their influence. It's odd for someone from the Armian family to be here, considering they always refuse to get involved in this kind of thing. Ain says he's here because he's tired of hearing people talk about how his family is washed up. The Armians still have royal blood, even if just in name. And for that reason, he wants to become a true knight and restore the family's honor. Fernan studies his personality a bit more. He can already tell the boy has a strong sense of determination, ambition, and a whole lot of pride in his lineage. They keep chatting about whatever until the scene shifts. Finally, Fernan feels like he's starting to understand the kind of person Ain Armian really is. His original plan was to sponsor him a bit and buy him some things to invest in him. But judging by the boy's personality, Fernan knows that would just feel like an attack on his pride. This kind of investment needs a push and pull approach, kind of like a relationship. You give a little, and then nothing. Then give a little more, and nothing again. He knows that with someone gentle, the only way to build trust is by gradually earning their loyalty. And only then, when the timing is perfect, he'll reel him in. Right then, the butler shows up and asks where he's been. Fernan asks if they've spoken to the Birchevs yet, and the butler says, yeah, the Birchev girl he needs to talk to about that whole issue with the merchants has actually been waiting for quite a while. Fernan had completely forgotten about her. The butler says that if he'd known she'd take this long, he would have told her to come back another time. But she decided to wait, and it's been 3 hours now. She probably thinks Fernan's been deliberately stalling to get her to give up. To which Fernan replies that honestly, that just makes things easier. If she's discouraged, it'll be even easier to crush her. Whoa, easy there, kid. He laughs and says that either way, he still needs things to go well with the Birchevs. Then suddenly, he feels something strange. The butler asks what's wrong. Clutching his head, a little off balance, Fernan says it's nothing, just a weird headache. But of course, something new shows up. Something about an aquamarine and a noble still alive, something like that. Actually, it's about a girl with chestnut brown hair and eyes that resembled aquamarine. But behind all her beauty, the best way to describe her was her noble presence and unmatched swordsmanship. Her sword danced in the moonlight, and it said that if her shackles were ever broken, she would be able to spread her wings again. Those shackles belonged to the Fellenberg family. Now Fernan is starting to piece together why Ain ends up hating him in the future. Apparently, he's going to have some sort of connection with this blue-eyed girl, and Fernan seems to be a problem in her life. Fernan mutters a curse under his breath, and the butler thinks it's directed at him. Then we cut to the girl sitting there thinking about Fernan Fellenberg. Why the hell did that bastard call her over just to leave her standing around for 3 hours? She doesn't even have a little phone to scroll through TikTok or anything. She's drowning in debt, and she's wondering if he thinks this is going to wear her down. Meanwhile, Fernan is right there behind her, watching quietly as the poor girl is still waiting. From a distance, he could feel how furious she was. It turns out the Birchev family, her family, comes from a remote northern city. They used to guard that region, but after a massive monster attack, they were basically wiped out. The fortress they had built was completely destroyed, and now they're desperately trying to scrape together money to rebuild. They even sold off some kind of golden patent that granted certain rights, but it wasn't enough. And the one who rescued them, the one who extended a helping hand, that was the head of the Fellenberg family, our boy's father. But of course he didn't do it out of pity. The Fellenbergs had always been talented in magic, but swordsmanship, that was another story. And the Birchevs, with their flawless sword technique, were starving. It was the perfect opportunity. So our boy's father offered them a loan, one they'd never be able to repay. The Birchevs survived annihilation only to now slowly die under crushing interest. This was the perfect chance to put pressure on them and force them to hand over their magical swordsmanship. But the problem with the Birchevs now is her. She's the one who, in the future, becomes Ain't Armian's lover. Her potential, her intelligence, her looks, it's all exceptional. The only thing she lacks is wealth. Given her talent and her connection to Ain't, all Fernan has to do is make sure she doesn't hate him. So he walks into the room and says she arrived earlier than expected. He apologizes, saying he got distracted and never meant to keep her waiting. She tells him not to bother apologizing, her time's already been wasted. Insists again that it wasn't on purpose. She says fine, she'll pretend to believe that. He starts to say something, but she cuts him off. She wants to know why he asked to meet her in the first place. Fernan replies that it's obvious. Sure, in theory, this is when you should be asking for her family's sword technique. But right now, his real goal is to get her to at least tolerate him, maybe even like him. What's he trying to seduce Luna Birchev? Seriously. She's supposed to be Ain's future girlfriend. Well, future is future, right? Damn, that's cold. He begins talking about something related to class structure between knights and the magic department, but she interrupts before he finishes. She says she already knows. He wants her to be his partner. But why would she agree to something like that? Being his partner is pointless. As the second-ranked student in the department, she'd do much better teaming up with someone in the top 10, not someone like him. But then he says, if you stay partnered with me for 3 years, I'll clear your entire debt. On one condition, she has to accept him as her sponsor. He's really trying to buy the girl. She asks why he's going this far. He says it's because this class stuff is important, but she still doesn't get it. Not only does he want her as a partner, now he wants to sponsor her too. Maybe he doesn't know, but she's on a scholarship at the academy. Everything she earns goes straight to her family. She lives more humbly than most of the regular students. Humbly, huh? Sitting there in a luxurious chair while a woman adjusts her clothes. Oh right, she doesn't buy clothes. The women sew for her. Got it. Fernan tells her to stop overthinking it. He just wants to invest because she's talented. Nothing more. But she knows how nobles work. They never sponsor anyone without expecting something in return. At that point, Fernan makes up his mind. Even if she hates him, he's going to make her accept this. He says the Fellenbergs and Birchevs share noble status. They're not the same at all. The Birchevs' swordsmanship pride couldn't compare to the strength, wealth, and royal lineage of the Fellenbergs. Ouch, that hit hard. She's clearly offended. So Fernan changes tactics. Even if she hates him, he'll make her take this deal. And he tells her straight, stop acting so proud. He wasn't lying when he said she was talented, but now it was time for her to accept it. Phase 2 of the operation. Let's see what he does next. And here he goes, saying he saw her swordsmanship recently. Out of nowhere, he starts quoting that exact same line from the book, talking about how her sword was noble and beautiful, how it truly embodied beauty and life. He knew this would get her. Now that he'd acknowledged her talent, she'd have no choice but to accept. She looked a little confused. Honestly, she didn't even blush. Guess our boy really has zero aura. He stands up and says he hasn't been able to forget seeing her fight. The guy launches into a whole speech, clearly full of fluff, about how she's been keeping him up at night ever since. She just tells him to stop with that nonsense, but he says he can't. He goes on again, saying her sword play is like a perfect dance, and that words fail to describe how breathtaking it is. Finally, she gives in and says fine. She didn't really have a choice, did she? She needs the money, and he's the richest person around. Sometime later, he tells her it'll be a 3-year sponsorship deal, but it won't be made public. Actually, it's the maid watching everything happen. But to her, the real price of all this was that Luuna would have to be the partner of that money demon for 3 whole years. And that's just bad news. Now she's sounding all sultry, saying the offer was too good to pass up. Not to mention the boy said he saw something in the way her sword moved, potential. The maid asks what exactly he said, and Luuna tells her. He said it was a supreme, noble, beautiful, and living dance. That's when she finally blushes, saying it felt like he didn't even have the words to describe her beauty. The maid doesn't seem happy about it. Whoa, jealous much? Let the guy work his charm. She admits the bastard's got good taste, but if she ever runs into that greedy gnome again, she's going to crush him. Yup, the maid's into our boy. She says that Kid is definitely using charm tactics. He's got good looks and intense eyes. Right away, Luina picks up on it. The maid's got a thing for that type. Luina says she didn't exactly feel seduced. She was more suspicious of the whole thing. Still being financially backed for 3 years, she couldn't say no, especially with her family completely broke. The maid says she gets it. But even so, Luina's ranked 2nd, and that Dan Fillenberg is only ranked 10th. Just then, our boy's attendant shows up, Hyde. He says the Lord wants to see Miss Luina. He'll be waiting for her at the training grounds, and she should head there as soon as possible. The maid clenches her jaw while Luina tries to make sense of it all. She can't figure out what's going through his head. And there he is, Our guy, striding in style with that magic staff strapped to his back, probably worth 15 quadrillion coins. Luina may be ranked second, but the current number one is someone named Alan Donnertz. Even so, she had enough talent to one day be among the top 10 strongest on the continent. Now it was time for our boy to find out if she was a hidden gem or not. She steps onto the training field, saying she still doesn't really understand what he's thinking. Fernan explains he's here to prove that joining him wasn't a bad decision. She already knows what that means. He's going to try to prove it by fighting her. So she warns him he doesn't stand a chance. At rank 10, all he's going to do is get beat, though she does admit he's not that bad. Still, he needs to understand the gap between rank 2 and rank 10 is huge, but he just tells her to come at him already. She says alright, she'll give him the chance to prove himself. Oh boy, he's already channeling his magic. Finally, this guy's about to use something other than raw cash. Right away, a bunch of stones shoot down at her. Our boy's chanting in some unknown language and the attack flies straight at her, but she just spins her sword once and slices everything apart, all while smiling. In the same second, she charges at him. Stashes flying here and there, jumps left and right, she's coming in fast. He's genuinely impressed at how easily she's tearing the whole place apart. He keeps launching spells, but she keeps deflecting them like it's nothing. And then, bam, he teleports. Now he's behind her, drawing a magic circle. She knows the training arena has reinforced flooring that's supposed to resist all magic, and yet, somehow, he's still wrecking everything. It makes her pause for a second. Could Fernan Fellenberg have really done all this? He's just been standing there, calmly casting spell after spell, smacking his staff into the ground. Now she's starting to wonder, has Fernan Fellenberg been hiding his true power all along? So the guy's rich, good-looking, and secretly powerful? Come on, share some of that around. She notices he's casting multiple spells back-to-back without resting, which makes no sense. He'd need a ridiculous amount of mana to pull that off. That definitely isn't the power level of someone ranked 10th. At this rate, she's actually going to lose. She activates a tornado and starts shredding all the floating rocks to pieces. Fernan reappears, watching someone with a smirk. The whole training ground is falling apart now. Sky breaking through the ceiling, stones flying everywhere. With her sword in hand, she charges at him again. Another flurry of slashes. And now, our boy's still just standing there. Let's see if she hits him. But suddenly, the sword clatters to the ground. Wait, no, that was his staff. Looking all sheepish, he says he gives up. She immediately suspects he's messing with her. Is he seriously trying to humiliate her? He says no, he's completely out of mana. He literally can't do anything else. She stares at him for a moment. He doesn't seem like he's faking. It all makes sense now. He drained his mana entirely. There was no way he could have won like that. Since she managed to defend herself, that clearly counted as her victory. But even so, she still felt uneasy. Something about the whole thing just didn't sit right. Then Fernan says he's got something for her. Yep, this is her prize for beating him. A box of chocolates. He knows she likes them. Apparently, his family produces some of the finest chocolate out there. He's sure she won't turn it down. And if she doesn't want that one, he could always buy some Kraken chocolate instead. A little dazed and practically drooling, she says it seems like he's been doing some research on her. And he fires back, saying he wouldn't go that far for someone like her. Begs, is he in love or not? Make up your mind. He says he just looked up a few people in the top rankings. She replies that's exactly what stalking is and turns her back. Tells him to stop trying to offer her chocolate just because she won a duel. She's not a child. He insists a little more and she yanks it out of his hand, saying fine. But then she stops him. She wants to ask something. How in the world does he have that much mana? Enough to fire off so many chain specials back to back. Normally, that'd be impossible for a mage. It's way beyond normal limits. If he's that skilled, why is he only ranked 10th? He smiles and says it's obvious. A merchant doesn't need to be in the spotlight. This guy purposely keeps his rank low just to make more money. Not in pride. Even pride comes second to profit. He glances at his staff. Someone nearby asks what happened. It's Hyde. He wants to know why Fernan burned through all the mana refills and the mana amplifier. Our boy says he had to duel Luina, and she was surprisingly tough. He came completely prepared and still got wrecked. Not only did she defend herself effortlessly, but his mana ran out way before he could even think about hurting her. Hyde doesn't get it. Why go that far for her? Was she really worth it? Fernan says it's simple. She's an investment for the future. Once again, the butler's wondering if this is a side effect of that lightning strike to the head. Honestly, our boy's just thinking that Hyde was absolutely right. Her swordsmanship really was elegant. Now it made sense why he was so focused on the Burka family's techniques. Not to mention, Luina really did have talent. So why was it that, in the future, she never seemed to stand out? Maybe her gear was subpar, or maybe something happened along the way. Well, yeah, our family basically ruined her by burying her in endless debt. Still, the attendant wants to know, what's Fernan going to tell the Duke? After all, he didn't manage to obtain the legendary sword style from their family. Fernan admits he hadn't thought that far ahead, then asks if this means he's going to lose his position. The butler says no, he won't be exiled. He'll probably just get killed, run over, and left in a ditch. He already sent a letter to the Duke ahead of time so the guy can be ready to execute him the moment he shows up. And instead of panicking, because he knows this is about to spiral out of control, Fernand's been trying to distract himself and ignore it all. A few days later, the letter finally arrives. He opens it, nervous as hell, wanting to know what his father said. He's already on edge because the response came much faster than usual. The butler confirms it, but says the real concern now is what's inside. Fernan even asks if his dad sent a separate letter with an execution order. The butler says no, though he's pretty sure today is the last day he'll be serving Fernan, since it's the end of the line for him. Fernan knows deep down he's not going to lose his position because of this. It'll be because of Hyde being overly dramatic. But when he finally looks at the letter, all his father wrote was that he probably got possessed by a demon. Right then and there, Fernan says he should go visit the old man. Obviously, he can't tell anyone that he got a hold of that prophecy, or that he knows a bunch of stuff that hasn't happened yet. It's not like he can physically prove it. There's no actual book, just the information inside his head. If he just blurts out the truth, his father will think he's some delusional merchant who's lost his grip. Probably get furious, thinking Fernan's trying to ruin the entire family. That's why, for now, the goal is simple: minimize the damage this Birchev situation might cause. When he gets there, the Duke tells him he looks a lot calmer than expected. He asks if his son's been doing drugs or slowly losing his mind. Or maybe the demons that the Emperor killed in a past life have started possessing his child. Because if it's none of that, then he can't explain what the hell is going on. Fernan responds that he simply decided to make a better investment in the Birchev family. The Duke wants to know what kind of investment could possibly be better than receiving their secret sword technique. And Fernan just says he can't tell him. The Duke replies that this isn't a request. Right now, he sees Fernan as nothing more than a disgrace, a fool trying to squander the family fortune. But Fernan holds his ground, saying even so, his beliefs haven't changed. If the Duke trusted him with the Birchev situation, the outcome would bring in a fortune far greater than that sword technique ever could. The Duke says if that's really the case, he's willing to reconsider, but he wants to know the source of Fernan's confidence. Fernan says he can't reveal that. The Duke's temper flares. He says this is getting ridiculous. He didn't raise his son to be this reckless. He should know that things like this can't just be handled with vague words and empty promises. That's when Fernan realizes he'll have to reveal something about the prophecy if he wants this to work. He really didn't want to start talking about it, but he's running out of options. So he says that in exchange for being fully responsible for the Birchev matter, he'll share one piece of information that only he knows. The Duke asks how that's even possible. Fernan says it's because of an intelligence network he personally manages. Of course, his father wants to refuse, saying there's no way his personal intel group is smarter than the one run by the whole family. But fine. He's curious about this so-called big information Fernan claims to have. So Fernan tells him about the Hurros Mountains in the east, territory of Viscount Donnert's. There's an undiscovered mana crystal mine in that region. His father says that's hard to believe. Usually, as soon as mana mines are discovered, they're stripped clean. How could Fernan's group, which is clearly inferior, know about something like that, while their intelligence team missed it completely? He even says Fernan's group is made of children. Fernan just shrugs and says kids love digging in the dirt. They got lucky. All this father needs to know is that the amount of mana crystals down there is more than enough to cover the potential loss from the Birchev negotiations. The Duke's face turns serious. What can he say? He loves money too. A mountain of wealth was enough to make any problem disappear. Mana stones, rare crystals containing magical energy, are one of the best ways to get rich. The only problem is, in the prophecy, this mine is only mentioned briefly. There's no exact location, and Fernan himself hasn't seen it. He doesn't know how big it is, or if it really holds that much value. But right now, the goal is to buy himself time with his father. He also remembers that the Donnert's family had some sort of supply operation there, but it failed after a cyclone hit. Obviously, they were supposed to claim that mana mine for themselves. But now Fernan's family has a chance to swoop in and take advantage of the situation. The Duke says if what Fernan said is true, it could fix the mess he made, but it'll have to be verified first. For now, Fernan should return to school and focus on his studies. Fernan thanks him and walks out, sweating, thinking that at least he managed to calm the Duke's temper. But just as he's walking away, his father calls out, "Fernan." He turns around, panicking. What is it? The Duke just invites him to dinner, since he's already there. Later, the Duke talks with the butler, looking a bit disappointed. The Black Turtle and his family's intelligence group missed something this important. He snacks quietly, saying he'll look into what's going on with their information network. Then the Duke asks what the butler thinks about Fernan. He says the boy's been shaping up to be a respectable merchant. The Duke agrees, but still wants to know how they found out about this mine. It just doesn't add up. They should also investigate Fernan's intel group, find out how they're getting this kind of information. Maybe that's what they specialize in. Apparently, Fernan's group is called the Golden Pillar, and Fernan himself is a specialist in locating mana stones. Even though he has top-tier talent in fire magic, he focused entirely on earth magic just to understand more about stones. That little bastard. The Duke says in a way it makes sense. His son's magical talent fits, and his group investigates exactly that. Still, they need more details. The butler suggests they be careful. Fernan might already be growing faster than they expected. But the Duke smiles, saying he hadn't expected anything so extraordinary to come from his son. If it turns out to be true, that's great. But right now, they need to look into that Luina Birchev girl and figure out how she managed to seduce poor little Fernand's Inho. The butler says it sounds like the Duke actually believes she seduced him. He says of course he believes it. He raised Fernand to be a brilliant merchant. Why else would the kid throw money into something so stupid? The reason is obvious. He got defeated in the game of love. Still, he gets it. The boy's young. Youth isn't easy to control. But the Duke, he's not young anymore. He doesn't care about their relationship. What matters is understanding why Fernand's getting involved in all of this. Why is that boy, who loves money more than his own father, suddenly choosing something like this? The scene shifts to Luina, happily eating a giant ice cream cone that our boy gave her. They're talking about someone named Carlos. Apparently, he also wanted to sponsor her, but once he found out Fernand already was, he went after someone else. Fernand asks why she told him she needs to understand that rumors spread, but she replies that in the end, everyone's going to find out anyway. Besides, she already knows people will assume she's only partnered with him for the money. And the reason she doesn't want to hide it is because, well, that's exactly what it is. He nods and says, yeah, money is great. He really likes it. With money, there's nothing you can't get. Right then, she understands why people call him the demon of wealth. That's exactly why she hates him. And that's when he hands her something, an elixir and a voucher. The elixir was made using mandrake roots, and the voucher could be redeemed at one of his company's stores for a weapon. She immediately wants to know why. There's no way she can afford something like this. He brings up the sponsorship contract. She says she's aware, but even so, this is way too much. These kinds of items are extremely rare. From his reaction, though, she can already tell. It's only rare to someone like her, someone broke and drowning in debt. To him, it's nothing. Even so, she refuses to accept it. Meanwhile, Fernand's thinking. Considering the fact that he's destined to become a beggar in the future, anything he can do now to prevent that is a 100% gain. He tells her that refusing his support goes against the terms of their contract. She agreed to be sponsored after all. She snaps, practically breathing fire, and says, fine, I'll take it. He stands up and says, see you in class. As he walks away, she can't stop thinking. Even if this is a sponsorship, it's going to come at a cost. Is there some hidden clause in the contract where he ends up losing everything? That can't be real, right? But what really gets to her is that she can't understand why he's going so far, giving her all these rare and valuable things. Maybe he's trying to seduce her just to steal her family's sword technique, or maybe it's something else entirely. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. There's no way she's fallen for him. Yeah, sure, the moment someone says that, you know they're doomed. Poor Ain't Armian. Somebody tell him his future fiancée, who he hasn't even met yet, has already been stolen. Meanwhile, back in class, Fernand knows Ain't is supposed to be around somewhere. But where is he? Ah, there he is, standing quietly off to the side. Today's lesson is about real combat training and swordsmanship, the deadly kind. And according to the prophecy, this is where Ain't is supposed to start drawing attention. This is the beginning of the story, the moment the world starts watching the hero rise. Fernand wants to know what Ain's doing here. Did one of the students catch his eye? Fernand, being part of the ranked students, says he's supposed to keep an eye on the incoming competition. He asks if the guy's here to observe Ain't Armian, and the other boy grins and says, of course, he's from the Imperial bloodline. Considering that Ain's family descended from the great savior himself, and that it's been 100 years since any of them enrolled in the academy, yeah, people are definitely curious about him. That blonde guy's name is Ludger Schwaben. He's the second son of the current ruling family. 100 years ago, they were elected as the new imperial family, and they've held power ever since. Turns out they share ancestral roots with Ain's family, but their bloodlines split off a long time ago. They placed a lot of value on their current position, and now someone from the same ancestral line, Ain't, might come back and take that spotlight. So naturally, he's attracting a lot of attention. Ludger tells Fernand there's someone else interested in Ain't too, a guy named Varen Kalbunder. Seriously, what's with these names? This guy joined the academy as the second highest scoring student, and he's probably looking to steal whatever attention Ain's getting for himself. That's exactly why he was staring so hard at the kid. That was the name Fernand had been waiting to hear. In every hero's story, there has to be a villain, and it looked like in Ain't Armian's story, this was the guy. The one who swore he cut Ain't Armian down at the root. The instructor announces the next match, Anton Dern versus Ain't Armian. And just like that, every single person involved in the future Fernand had seen was now gathered in one place. It really was something fascinating. In the memories, he recalled everyone cheering for Ain't, the crowd screaming his name. But right now in this moment, no one even knew who he was. No one had any idea of the potential he held. For Fernand, though, this was the moment to see if his investment was going to pay off. The instructor tells them to get ready, and then gives the signal to begin. Dern charges forward at full speed. Ain't looks startled by the first clash of swords. Dern swings straight for the neck. Was he serious? Was he really trying to decapitate him? But Ain't flips into the air, landing to the side. Still, the jump drains him. Up in the stands, the second prince remarks that Ain't got unlucky going up against someone so skilled in the first round. Anton Dern had ranked 10th in the entrance exams. Definitely not someone to underestimate. For the record, Ain't had ranked 36th, and that was before he got his hands on the Emperor's sword. The second prince shrugs and says there's nothing worth watching here and starts to leave. But Fernan says he thinks something interesting is about to happen. Right on cue, Ain't launches a wide slash straight at his opponent's face. A grazing cut across the cheek, his uniform tears open. And in that moment, he realizes, if the blade had gone just a little farther, he would have been sliced clean in half. Now, even those two smug guys who were looking down on the blonde kid are suddenly paying attention. Fernan can tell that Ain't only struggled at first because Dern came in too aggressively. It was just a lack of battle experience, but the talent was clearly there. And once he locked in, it only took seconds for him to beat the guy who ranked in the top 10. Now Dern's on his knees, totally humiliated, defeated by the guy who was ranked 38. Wait, wasn't it 36 before? Is his rank dropping by the minute? Dern flares up with aura, shouting that there's no way he's going to lose here. Off to the side, a pair of students comment that Ain't's doing better than they expected, but there's no way he could beat someone who ranked 10th. The second prince adds that, well, at least he's living up to the Armian name. For someone supposedly untalented, he's putting in a decent effort. Fernan, however, sees it completely differently. Lack of talent? That wasn't it at all. The truth is, the kid came from barren lands. He never had the support or resources to train properly. And even so, here he was holding his own against someone who had trained his entire life. This kid really was something special. No wonder the prophecy chose him. And now the world was about to find out who the true protagonist of this story really was. Dern's sword goes flying. He drops to the ground, gasping for breath, completely defeated. The instructor announces, the winner is Ain't Armian. Ain't stands there, smiling from ear to ear. As the crowd erupts in cheers, the redhead glares in frustration. And the money demon, he's celebrating too. Stocks are up, big time. Now that's a good investment. He hums a little tune, totally pleased. But now it was time to see what came next. People nearby are starting to murmur, wondering if the two of them, Fernan and Luina, are actually a real pair. Ah yes, the next big investment, Luina, who's standing next to him fuming. He casually asks if she took the elixir and picked up the gear he gave her. She doesn't say a word, but the truth is, she was really happy when she got all that equipment, and when she took the elixir, her power shot through the roof. Still, she keeps her cool and just mutters that it wasn't bad. It was okay. Suddenly, someone walks over. It's the instructor, who says that all the perfect pairs have been finalized, and thankfully, no one was late. She was Roselia from the magic department, and the guy next to her was Grad, the knight. He walks by handing them some scrolls announcing that class is about to begin. Everyone's going to receive maps from the assistants, and the first class is a practical one. At least in this academy, they actually value a good fight. The redhead says they're going to get real training today. From this point on, they'll be thrown straight into the field. On the map they're getting, the destination is marked. All they have to do is arrive at that exact location within 4 hours. But here's the catch. They can't arrive too early or too late. They need to get there precisely 4 hours from now, at exactly 2:00 p.m. Some curious students ask if this will affect their grade. They're told straight up, this is just as important as the midterm exams. Their gothic professor says that if there are no questions, they're heading out. She simply wishes them good luck. The scene cuts to a mountain deep in a forest, and here comes the dynamic duo. One of them asks where exactly they are, but Luina's already fired up and tells them to get moving. Still, they should probably take a quick look at the map first. But then as they turn around, they notice another pair staring at them, and the red-haired girl calls out to Luina. Fernan immediately recognizes everyone. Jane Hux and Ned Palin both rank below 70. In other words, not even worth the time. Damn, that's cold. Normally, that's what he'd say. Someone who makes decisions based on pure logic. Up ahead, they're already halfway through. But the girl looks ready to fight, and Fernan just shrugs and tells her to do what she wants. So she draws her sword, saying it's time to grab some bonus points. He asks if it wouldn't be easier to just handle this with magic. They go back and forth discussing how to deal with it, while the other dude's just trying to find a way to slip away. But the very next second, Luina's already in the air doing flips, declaring she's about to lock in those bonus points. Oof, looks like those poor students just got obliterated. Well, one of them did throw up a pretty solid barrier. Props to that. Actually, never mind. It's over. The two of them are lying on the ground in tears. And just like that, another team's been eliminated. Back in the observation room, the professor comments that one more team's down. Everyone's dropping faster than expected. Roselia, the gothic professor, thinks it's fine. At least the students aren't being wiped out by monsters. It's way more interesting when the conflict is internal. The professor asks if there's any group she's paying close attention to. She says, of course, Ludger Schweman and Alain Donitz are the strongest team. Carlos is also a name worth keeping an eye on. And obviously, the most bizarre team in the whole class, Luina Burchev and Fernan Fellenberg. He agrees. That pair was totally unexpected. And honestly, Luina seems to be at a disadvantage. Was it because of the money? What did make sense was that Fernan never cared enough about grades to invest just for academic improvement. The professor says she's sure there's another reason. After all, she knows for a fact Fernan could raise his rank anytime he wanted. The professor is confused. What do you mean by that? She tells him to look closer. Ever since Fernan joined the academy, he's always been ranked 10th, no matter what happens. Even top students usually fluctuate in rank. So how come, no matter who comes or goes, Fernan never moves from 10th place? On top of that, his written exams are practically flawless. The only time he loses points is during the practicals, which keeps him locked at 10th. Woo, you sneaky little bastard. What is this? Ayanokoji behavior? The professor finally gets it. The kid's doing it on purpose. Rosalia confirms it, obviously. And you might not know yet, but the one who destroyed the training grounds recently, that was Fernan. The professor can't believe it. That entire place was reduced to ashes. There was a hole in the ceiling. What the professor wants to know is, why is Fernan hiding his abilities? She answers that there's really no way to know for sure, right? Based on his motivations, maybe it's about money. And there he is, standing confidently on top of a rock, pointing north on the map. Meanwhile, down below, Luina seems to be beating the life out of everyone. A little while later, a bunch of students are already lying on the ground, knocked out, and she asks if he at least found something. He says they're going to have to head north. The downside is the path is full of people. But for her, that's perfect. She's ready to wipe out the next group. Just then, though, a giant fireball comes flying at them like a comet. Someone approaches, saying they finally met. A blonde guy and a girl who already looks like she's about to lose. Carlos Deniv. Yeah, even his name sounds like he's going to get wrecked. Luina says it was a cheap shot, but he replies that this is real combat practice. They'd better know they won't get away now that fate brought them together. Luina doesn't understand why this guy's so angry. Fernan says it's obvious. It's because he stole her from him. She tells him to quit with that. She doesn't belong to anyone, so there was no stealing. Apparently, this blue-haired guy wanted to pair up with her. And now Carlos is all red in the face, shouting at them to come fight. Fernan realizes that fighting is inevitable at this point. Luina thanks him, saying their rank is higher, more points for them. He tells her to go ahead and charge in. He knows there's no stopping her. If anything, he'll provide backup. But she says she won't need it. They hadn't coordinated anything anyway. How would they even be in sync? Meanwhile, Fernan's already lifting chunks of earth with magic, telling her not to worry. Stones fly everywhere. He tells her to trust him. And the crazy part is this guy doesn't even specialize in earth magic. Just wait until he finally uses fire. The next chapter opens with the gothic professor saying there's a good fight going on. It's on the Eastern Mountain. No monsters are supposed to appear there, so it's worth checking out. Turns out the two teams she'd been watching are now clashing. It was finally time for her to see what Fernan Fillenberg could really do. And there he is, hurling boulders while Luina charges in. It's a real fight between powerhouses. She thought the blue-haired guy was a swordsman, but apparently he's a mage. Seems like every guy in this world is a mage. Our dear Luina is confused. Her body feels incredibly light. There's only one explanation. Fellenberg used support magic, but when did he even cast it? He's too smooth with it, already backing her up mid-fight. She glances over and gives her a wink. She realizes he's insane. Right then, she almost gets slashed by the other girl, but dodges just in time. Now is not the time to be distracted by that idiot. She needs to finish off Alia. She blasts a powerful explosion, and Alia blocks it. Now the two of them are locked in close sword combat. But then Alia's partner fires off a lightning bolt. You'd think Fernan would step in, but no. Luina gets hit. She's paralyzed, unable to move. Alia steps forward, saying this is the end. Luina mutters that it's nothing, but it's too late. Alia activates her aura and says it's over. Then a golden flash streaks across the field. Not lightning, a meteor. No, turns out Fernan used a kind of teleportation. He pulled off a substitution spell and brought her right to his side. She's stunned. What was that? He simply says, magic. It's a new technique he developed with his family. Turns out it's pretty useful, and this was the perfect time to use it. It allows him to switch out anything that has the exact same weight. She asks how he knows her exact weight. He replies that it's all recorded in the Academy's student registry. She laughs, saying that stone must have been really heavy. They nearly attacked again, but the scene cuts off just before they do. She immediately says she's going to have to erase those student records later, but for now it's time to deal with this fight. She tells Fernan to back off and charges at the opponents. She asks him to at least hold off that annoying Carlos while she takes on Alia. Right then, a magic circle appears near Fernan. He's thrilled. Finally, the guy is using what he actually knows. Carlos specialized in lightning magic, and one of his signature techniques was creating an orb that releases multiple lightning bolts, what they called multicasting. That spell was one of the reasons he was ranked so high in the department. And now Fernan could finally test something out to see if it worked. He slammed his staff into the ground and started chanting in some strange language. Carlos was doing the same, muttering in that weird, mystical tone. Suddenly, everyone felt something was off. Someone shouted Fernan's name. He had just been struck with a lightning bolt right to the head. Smoke everywhere. That was already the second time he'd been fried. But of course, he was totally fine. Carlos was in disbelief. How had the entire lightning spell been blocked? On the ground, there was an item. Clearly something he used. Probably super expensive. The kind of thing only he could afford. Fernan explained it was something that could store energy. He just made a few adjustments and apparently worked really well. Once he fine-tunes it a bit more, he's planning to sell it in stores. Carlos says that artifact is cheating. But Fernan replies there's no such thing as cheating or cowardice on the battlefield. This was a real fight after all. Then he calls out to Luina. Carlos turns around, worried about Alia. but Ferdinand had already given the command to finish it. Luina's bright blue eyes flare as she lands a clean hit. Nearby, the top two students, probably number 1 and 2, are watching. The prince, Ledger, the blonde one, remarks that there are only 4 people left now. Alan, the number 1 ranked student, says what really interests him is how Ferdinand blocked Carlos' lightning. Ledger admits he doesn't know much about Ferdinand. He'd been hiding for a long time, but now that he's teamed up with Burchev, it's going to be tough to keep his powers under wraps. He was unlucky to team up with someone so obsessed with grades. He's definitely going to have to work hard to keep up with her. He really does need to watch himself. This place is full of people trying to take his spot at the top. And sure enough, from behind, more students were showing up. Too bad they're all just background characters who are about to get wrecked. Won't even be worth showing them lose. At first, it seemed like they were heading to fight Ledger, but he turns around and says he'll get everyone safely to the final destination on one condition. They have to team up and take down the duo of Luina and Ferdinand Fellenberg. The next chapter opens with a monster getting sliced. Ferdinand says they're getting close to the destination, but creatures keep popping up. Luina cheers, thinking they're probably going to be the first to finish. He's busy collecting blood from one of the monsters and asks if it's really necessary. He explains troll blood is incredibly useful for crafting a bunch of potions. She says she already knows that, but come on, with how much money he has, that stuff's basically pocket change. But of course he's greedy. To him, money is money, no matter the amount. She complains and he reminds her. Thanks to that mindset, he managed to buy her. She storms off, saying she's had enough. He teases that she sounds awfully desperate to stay at the top of the ranking. She admits it. There's a very specific reason why she has to be at the top. Suddenly, he says he senses someone approaching. Actually, not just someone, quite a few people. Right away, and they're surrounded. Magic starts flying, stones come hurling through the air. He raises a barrier and slices down the first few attackers. What the hell? It all happens so fast. Someone's charging straight at Luina with a sword, and wouldn't you know it, it's Alon Donitz, the same guy who already got beaten by Ain't. Now it's her turn to take him down. They trade blows in a clean fight, but the impact sends both of them flying back. They manage to land just fine, and as usual, she's fired up. They immediately charge at each other again. She activates her aura and tells him to bring it on. He stays silent, though, and keeps fighting. Another solid sword clash. But then a strange movement cuts through the middle of everything. And suddenly, another mage appears, flames in hand. Wait a second, that's not just any mage. Isn't that the guy ranked second, Ledger? But before anything else happens, a wave of dark energy sweeps across the entire field, heading right for him. I honestly don't even know who cast it. This fight's gotten way too chaotic. The blonde guy's smiling. Oh, of course, our boy Ferdinand took things seriously. He's hurling fire and stones everywhere now. A massive explosion goes off right in front of the whole crowd of students. The other guy complains he was only trying to test Ferdinand to see how he'd react. No need to go all out and vaporize everything. He says that kind of effort isn't like Ferdinand at all. But Ferdinand just answers that this time he wants to make sure they finish in first place. The guy smiles and says it's a shame, because they can't really win. They can't settle this peacefully, but if they fight now, neither team will be able to finish. So how about this? Let Ferdinand and Luina take first, and they'll settle for second. That way, both sides come out ahead. Looks like Ferdinand's about to show what he's really capable of, and he absolutely does. He basically humiliates the guy, telling him that unfortunately, they'll have to wait until next time. The guy clearly picks up on the hint. Right then, Ferdinand throws down a massive portal beneath everyone. A huge magic circle appears as the ground splits. He's tearing up the entire forest. At the same time, he throws up a barrier around him and Luina. Turns out they had set up this trap ahead of time. But by then, it was already too late. Everyone else is sealed inside a stone cocoon. Ferdinand calls out to her, telling her it's time to go. Wait, are they really just gonna leave like that? No way it ends that easily. But it does. The headmaster congratulates everyone and announces the rankings. First place, Luina Burchev and Ferdinand Fellenberg. Those other two grumble, and second placed, totally wiped. Ferdinand compliments Luina on the result. She admits she didn't expect them to actually come out on top. She thought it was unfair since they didn't go up against the strongest. But he tells her that doesn't matter. In the end, they still won. The professor announces the official end and reminds everyone not to wander around. At that moment, Luina asks about Ain Armian. She explains that she saw him the night before. She had been training and stumbled upon something interesting. She describes it in the exact same way Ferdinand described her when he first saw her sword dance. Suddenly, Ferdinand puts a hand over his face. At first, it seems like he's just confused, because after all, he's been trying to win Luina over. But now she's clearly fascinated by another guy's sword skills. But no, that's not it. It's something to do with the prophecy. Another part of it has just been revealed. Apparently, Ain Armian reached out his hands and asked Luina to become his knight, but she refused. Now Ferdinand can't make sense of what's happening. Even the prophecy is getting scrambled. The text is all flipped upside down. He can't even read it properly. There's something apocalyptic coming, and it looks like Ain Armian is its target. But someone, a female knight, stood in front of him. And now the story is shifting. This wasn't how the future was supposed to go. Ain asked what she thought she was doing, and she answered, "Today I'll be your knight, just like you asked." She said she was born to wield a sword and destroy the enemies of lords. and with that, she ran forward to face the demon Andromalius. Fernan can't understand why any of this is happening, and apparently she ends up in rough shape after the battle. This new vision of the future seems complete now. It feels like we're stepping into a whole different story. She wakes up in the hospital with Ain't smiling beside her, just grateful she survived. But the blonde guy swore he'd destroy those bastards who tried to hurt her and ruin the future of the Berkov family. And it really seems like he's angry at a certain type of rich bastard. There's only one person that could be. The rich bastard himself, that scumbag. Suddenly, someone calls out to Fernan again. It's the professors and Luina asking if he's okay. He's just standing there, totally zoned out. He answers that he's just a little exhausted, but he's fine. While the professor starts talking about taking him to the infirmary, he's more focused on the fact that he finally figured out why Ain Armian will see him as an enemy. What he can't understand is why the prophecy has changed, and why everything now seems to revolve around Luina. What's even stranger is that it feels like whatever's coming is happening soon, meaning the demon Andromalius is about to show up. And to be honest, doesn't that bastard kind of look like his dad with that same tired face? Next chapter. Ain is praising our boy for coming in first place, and the kid just walks into the carriage saying he's exhausted. He'd been thinking about that Andromalius guy, the 72nd demon. Man, what a number to remember. The creature takes on a human form but has a little snake on his arm. No matter how many books our boy searches through, that's the only info he can find on the bastard, which makes sense. Really, he showed up during the war 1,000 years ago. So how is there supposed to be any detailed information on that freak? Those things were all wiped out by the first emperor and haven't been seen since. Still, he's relatively calm. Ain's going to deal with that guy anyway, so it's not really his problem. The real issue is that it looks like Luina's going to get hurt in all of this, and now he's wondering, should he tell her what's going to happen to her? He tried bringing it up, but all she did was ask if he's losing his mind. He asked her, "Hey, do you believe in demons?" That just confused her even more. He pushed her to give a straight answer, and she finally said yes, she does. After all, this entire nation was built to fight demons back in the day. Then he asks what she thinks about the idea that demons still exist. And of course, she once again asks if he hit his head and completely lost it. Now he's sitting there trying to figure out what could possibly convince this girl when an idea hits him. In a month, during one of the knight's training sessions, Ain is going to defeat Kalbunder, the second strongest one. And from that point on, nobody can really compare to Ain. But the loser in this case doesn't just lose the fight. No, it's worse. It's like their honor and their standing with their family gets wrecked too. The redhead realized he completely misjudged Ain. He thought the kid would be pathetic, but he was dead wrong. That burning frustration ends up pushing Kalbunder over the edge, and in the end, he gets possessed by a demon. And it's right then that the creatures start to appear. If our boy can use that moment to persuade her, it might be the perfect chance. Next scene. We switch over to Ain's little ghost friend, who says not to trust those two families getting close. The only ones who could have stood by him in the past were always the Berchevs. Turns out, our boy already knows about the ghost's little chat. What the hell? He's already got almost all the info he needs to carry out his plan, but there are still a few missing pieces. He knows those pieces are going to show up eventually, but this time it's taking forever, and it seems like he needs to meet some kind of condition first, whatever that means. The scene then cuts to Ain in his room looking over everything that happened, how our boy got first place with the Berchev girl. The ghost says it was all thanks to her, coming from a proper family. There's no way that Fellenberg guy was any help. That bastard only cares about money. But Ain explains that nowadays the Fellenbergs have way more influence than the Berchevs. The ghost blames himself, saying it's all because he backed those bastards 1,000 years ago. Suddenly, he gets an idea and tells Ain to ask the Fellenberg boy for money. The blonde guy is confused, but the ghost insists this is the perfect chance, especially since Fernan actually seems to like him. The ghost convinced the guy wants to build some kind of relationship with the Armians, and the Fellenbergs always use money as bait to get what they want. So now Ain's wondering, did Fernan only get close to him because of something else? His family's already ruined, so what could he even offer? The ghost tells him to stop putting himself down like that. He says the reason doesn't matter. He's just sure a Fellenberg would act like that. Apparently, they're still behaving the exact same way they did 1,000 years ago. But poor Ain says there's no way our boy would do something like that. He seems like a genuinely kind person. The first time they met, he immediately gave Ain a ridiculously high-ranking title just to help him out. No way he sees that guy as cold and calculating. He says it'd be dishonorable to ask for money, but the ghost starts scolding him, reminding him that even the first emperor, who was insanely powerful, unlike him, needed help. So he better learn to beg and get some money from the Fellenbergs. Cut to the next scene. Ain is crushed. He didn't get to meet Fernan. Ain says Fernan must have too much going on. The guy's got to take care of the guild, the merchants, and keep up with his studies. Ain just asked them to make one thing clear. He's not just anybody. He's Ain. But Fernan replied saying he was too busy and told him to come back later. So Ain turns around. What can he do? He came all that way to ask for money, and now he's walking away empty-handed, feeling completely humiliated. But Fernan is watching from the window. He finds it strange. He hasn't even thrown out enough bait for Ain to show up like that already. Hyde walks in and says he already sent the kid away, then asks why Fernand's pushing him off when just a few days ago he was talking about getting closer to him. Fernand says it's because it's weird he came so suddenly. Everyone who seeks out the Fellenbergs usually has an obvious reason. He knows why Ink came, and that's exactly why he's even more suspicious. It's not normal for someone like him to go that far just to ask for money. That's why he sent him away. He has a feeling Ink came to ask for help, even if he didn't want to. And for now, it's best not to offer anything unless he truly trusts the boy. Hyde thinks he's overthinking it, wasting too much brain power on the descendant of a fallen family. But Fernand just says the kid's got talent, and he's sure it'll be worth it. Hyde agrees, but says it's weird that Fernand sent him away, if that's how he really feels. Fernand tells him to stop complaining and just go to the family warehouse to grab some elixirs. Looks like that's what he plans to give Ain't. Hyde says it's risky. If they hand over one of those ultra-rare elixirs and they don't work, they'll end up losing out. Fernand, however, says that if the most expensive one didn't work, they'll just make an even more expensive one. In this life, if you haven't succeeded yet, it just means you haven't spent enough money. Back in Ain's room, the little ghost is kind of stunned by the audacity. I mean, they didn't even send the boy himself, just a servant. At least they sent a letter of apology. He says he wants to take a look since the Fellenbergs are usually pretty polite. Our boy always refers to himself as somebody in the letter, which basically means someone more experienced. And that really ticks the ghost off. But what really gets Ain's attention is the gift. He checks it right away. It's an elixir infused with the spirit of the sacred bird, and it's perfect for the Armian sword style. Right then and there, Aint says that Fernand's really something. Even if he didn't give him money, he still offered something incredibly valuable. While Aint gets emotional, he says he always knew Fernand was kind. Now he's more determined than ever to keep working hard and live up to Fernand's expectations. Next chapter. Fernand asks how it went, and Hyde says Aint easily defeated Varen Kalbunder. Even though Varen had a slightly more advanced sword technique, Aint's aura was just overwhelming. Fernand asks if that's thanks to the elixir he sent, and Hyde says it probably helped a bit. But judging by Fernand's smile, Hyde says it seems like Aint would have won with or without it. Fernand simply replies, that's something we'll never know. What really matters is that, just like the prophecy said, Varen was defeated, and now he's going to be possessed by a demon. He tells Hyde to keep a close watch on Varen Kalbunder and find out what he's up to. He needs to know when and how this guy's going to make contact with the demon. He also says to keep an eye especially on where he goes, who he interacts with, and what he talks about. Hyde doesn't seem too interested, but Fernand insists. He needs to know everything that Varen does. The days go by, and soon Fernand is receiving updates about everything, from when Varen goes to the bathroom, to when he trains every class he takes and who he talks to. 2 weeks pass since the start of this whole surveillance operation, and still nothing. Fernand is sure something's wrong. According to the prophecy's timeline, demons should have started appearing and destruction should have begun. Looks like either Hyde's slacking on the job or maybe the details of the prophecy about the possession were off. The prophecy stated that after being defeated by Aint, Varen would grow in rage and confront him again during the mid-year exams. But the outcome would already be decided. Aint, taught by the spirit of Gardner, would completely overpower him. And sure enough, he beat him, leaving the guy knocked out on the ground. But what Aint didn't realize was that a strange demonic energy had started to seep into Varen's body. Suddenly, Fernand wakes up. It's morning. Apparently, he slept through the night and dreamt the whole prophecy. This time, it wasn't like before when the visions would come to him directly. It was more like a dream. Still, it seems he finally knows exactly when Varen will be possessed. During the mid-year exams after being defeated by Aint. And here's the kicker. That exam? Yeah, it's today. The damn prophecy caught him off guard. He wasn't expecting it to be right now. Hyde walks in and tells him that finally he's waking up early and it's time for breakfast. But then he sees Fernand storing a bunch of items into his portal, including his Zelda-looking shield, and asks what's going on. Fernand just says he's going to watch the first year's fight and might need some backup, so Hyde better come along. But no way. Hyde refuses. Turns out he was summoned to the Duke's territory, and Fernand just accepts it, saying it's fine. He'll take someone else. Hyde finds it strange, though. He knows Fernand doesn't have any friends at this academy. Fernand insists, claiming he's being slandered. He does have friends, all right. Look, friends he bought with money. Luina, now confused, wants to know what that's all about. He tells her he needs an escort to go pick up some elixir. She's not exactly thrilled, saying it's exam time, but then she mentions she could use a little help since she's being sponsored. The moment Fernand offers to reduce her debt, she immediately says she's in. When she asks where they're going, he says it's up in the northern mountains. She points out that the first years are taking their mid-year exams right now, so going up there is borderline insanity. She warns him if they interfere with the exam, both of them could get expelled for it. But then it hits her. If he's being allowed into the area, he must have bribed someone to let them in. He just smiles, saying the professors are surprisingly flexible. But suddenly, she says she's heading back to the dorm. He tells her to hurry up and come back. They're not gonna get caught. What kind of knight goes back on her word, he says. She tells him that's not it. She just forgot her little sword. He tells her to get moving already, says she'll come skipping and singing all the way. Obviously, they needed to be at that place, counted among those present, to witness everything going down. And there they are. Fernan reminds her that he paid off the professor to let them in, but they still can't afford to get caught. She immediately scolds him, saying he knew this was shady and wrong, and doing all of it anyway only made it worse. He tells her she's such a good kid and says he's going to check where they need to go. He vaguely remembers the location from the map. It's where Ing's fight happens. And finally, he gets to face Varen, who's turning into a demon with the right person beside him. He calls out for her to come with him. She's still focused on how he even got a full map of the entire test area. Clearly, the bastard paid a lot to that professor. He tells her to stop complaining and hurry up. But then, something feels off. Luna asks if that wasn't the sound of a monster just now. Fernan instantly feels something strange too. She says they need to help the first years. The bastard tells her to wait, but she takes off running ahead. She shouts back that someone's unconscious, but it looks like they had a defensive spell up, so they managed to survive. The problem is, whatever did this is weird. Creatures in this region aren't usually that aggressive. Fernan can't believe it. It's already started. And again, that eerie roar echoes through the trees. Luina asks what the hell is going on ahead of them. Why is the entire forest exploding? Then she asks, where even are they? When she glances to the side, something's approaching, and here comes an orc, mace in hand. But Luina doesn't hesitate. She slices clean through its arm, sending the chunk flying to the ground. But the creature keeps advancing and she's confused. She just hacked his arm off. Why won't it stop? Then chunks of rock start flying. Don't worry, the Money King himself is chucking boulders at its back. The beast keeps charging anyway. More stones slam into its chest in a barrage. Luina manages to dash past, stepping off a tree and dodging another attack in midair. She lands beside Fernan, confused, asking what the hell is going on. He explains it's a creature that's gone berserk. In that state, it won't feel any pain. This kind of monster is on a completely different level from the usual ones, and it's obsessed with killing anything alive it sees. She wants to know why that is. And of course, Fernan already has an idea. It's because of the prophecies and everything that's coming. While the professors are busy dealing with those monsters, Varen is going to attack Ink. Obviously, Ink should struggle against someone that strong. But just like in any story, the protagonist awakens a new power and ends up winning with ease. Luina tells Fernan to stop laughing and answer her. What the hell is that monster? He simply raises his staff and tells her to calm down. There's nothing to worry about. He's going to take care of that bastard first. We see the map start to break apart. Is the prophecy unraveling? Is he changing the future? Who knows? Someone crashes to the ground, completely beaten, calling out for Ain Armian. It's the poor redhead who's already been defeated. He tells Ain not to turn his back, that it's not over yet. But Ain just tells him to accept it. It's done. He's been defeated again. As obvious as those words were, they leave the boy stunned. He remembers the blonde guy, maybe his dad, or maybe that friend of his, saying that clearly he expected too much of him. He's already failed to meet the prince's expectations and now is about to be humiliated by his father once again. At this rate, he'll lose his place in the family. He has to win this fight somehow. This time, he has to defeat Ain Armian. Out of nowhere, a blur comes flying at him. He charges, yelling that it's not over yet. But Ain turns with a smile while the guy is practically exploding with rage. Still, all it takes is a clean set of strikes, and he collapses like trash onto the ground. Ain laughs, saying it's funny how hard this guy tries, even though he's so weak. He's nothing but a disgrace attacking from behind like that, no honor at all. Ain turns and walks away while his spirit companion keeps laying into the guy, calling him a worm who disgraces the honor of knights. Back with our dynamic duo, looks like they just finished off the monster and Luina is telling Fernan, please give up on this elixir thing. This forest is way too dangerous. But Fernan says, come on, Luina, you just defeated one of those creatures. That proves I can keep going. She asks if he's lost his mind, but he throws the same question back at her. He tells her that elixir is worth too much. And besides, even if those creatures are relentless, they do die in the end. That's when she questions him. Did he know something like this was going to happen? Is that why he dragged her along as an escort? He says no, obviously not. It's not like he has visions of the future, right? She still isn't convinced. Says something about all this feels off, but he just says there's something he has to do. The elixir is too important, and takes off running while she shouts that he's a lunatic. Sometime later, they come across someone collapse on the ground. Luina looks confused, wondering what this has to do with the elixir. But Fernan sees the red hair and already knows. It's that loser who got beaten down. Luina tells him to stay put. She'll go check who it is. As she gets closer, she sees Varen Kalbunder, or Kalbunder Varen, whichever name he's going by this time. She says he looks like he was defeated in a fight, but he's good. So who did this to him? Fernan says they need to leave now, but she refuses. Says they can't just leave someone lying there like that. While she's talking, the guy starts rising behind her. Suddenly, she feels something strange in the air and steps back, asking what that bizarre aura is. She's never felt anything like it. It doesn't seem like the same Kalbunder she knew. Fernan tells her it's demonic energy. In that moment, that bastard had been possessed. What Fernan finds odd is that the guy should awaken his demonic power right after getting beaten by Aint. But now it looks like his target has changed. Something's off. The demon is even starting to fully take over Kalbunder's body. And though Luina seems confused, Fernan knows just by looking into that guy's eyes, it's too late. there's nothing to be done. She, on the other hand, still wants to subdue him somehow. Fernan, though, just taps Luina on the shoulder and tells her to turn around for 10 minutes. When she turns back asking what, he's already vanished. And at that exact moment, Kalbunder is charging at her, sword ready to strike. She yells at him to calm down, telling him it's Birchev. But nope, it's a full-on, no-holds-barred clash of dark power. Her little sword against his massive blade, and she immediately realizes he's strong. At this rate, there's no way she's winning. So boom, she activates her aura. He gets knocked flat on his back like a chump, but in the same instant, he's already recovering, coming at her again. She shouts for him to snap out of it, to come back to his senses. But he grabs his sword again, swings at her, and she's forced to retreat once more. The guy's completely drenched in that cursed aura. While she's there, glowing with her bright little sword, he charges in like a rabid dog. Impact, sword on sword again, and the entire forest shakes with the explosion. She manages to land on her feet, but quickly realizes something's wrong. Her energy is being drained by that demonic power. How the hell is she supposed to beat someone like this? At this pace, she'll be worn out before he is. That's when Fernan suddenly appears, calling her name. Kalbunder turns, but Luina just steps on his head and bolts toward Fernan. She demands to know where he went, how he just vanished like that. He answers that dealing with demons isn't easy. They need a better plan. She's furious, calling it shameful that he left her behind like that. He explains that he didn't run away. He was setting up a trap to finish the demon off. They just needed to wait one more second. And boom. A stone formation erupts from the ground, launching Kalbunder straight up in a circle. From above, a barrage of flaming arrows rains down, slamming him back to the earth. Man, was that a Street Fighter combo? Even Luina yells at him not to overdo it. He almost killed the guy. Fernan tells her to relax. With demonic energy like that, he wasn't going to die that easily. In fact, she should take a closer look. All that did was make him even angrier. Luina tries to say something she noticed during the fight, but he completely ignores her. Instead, he says he'll have to use this. He pulls out a giant crystal. Yep, definitely more of that money-fueled power. More flames start gathering around the redhead. Now he's looking seriously corrupted. Flames engulf him, and finally he collapses, charred and defeated. Fernan lets out a sigh of relief, saying the operation was a success. Luina, however, points out that the item he used was ridiculously expensive. So wasn't that a massive waste? He agrees, but says items like that are meant to be used. She thinks it was overkill, but he's convinced. You can't take down a demon-possessed opponent that easily. Besides, he knows this cursed guy, Varen Kalbunder, was supposed to be one of the key players in the world's destruction. That's when it hits him. In the story, Ain't Armian was supposed to have a tough fight against this guy and awaken his true power through it. And that's when the realization lands. Sure, Ain't will become stronger than Luina in the future. But right now, when he's just starting at the academy, Luina is still way stronger than him, which means Fernan didn't have to use that expensive item at all. She probably could have handled it herself, just like Ain't eventually would have. She gives him a smack, telling him to snap out of it. All he can think about is how much money he blew on this idiocy. She tells him he's lost focus and needs to get his head together. But right then, Kalbunder starts rising again. Suddenly, he lunges for another attack. But he's all twisted and staggering, like a deranged monkey. And Fernan, he just decks him in the face with a punch, yelling, "How much did I have to spend to take down this bastard?" Kalbunder drops, unconscious, beaten in the messiest way possible. Next chapter, Kalbunder wakes up asking if that really was him. He can't believe it. Something like that just couldn't be real. Fernan just says flatly, that recording from the sphere clearly shows it was you possessed by a demon. There's no faking something like that. Kalbunder keeps insisting that he doesn't remember fighting Ain't Armian at all, nor anything about that fight. Fernan just replies that it's because by the time he fought Ain't, he was already starting to be possessed. Kalbunder pushes back, saying he never even spoke to a demon, never met one. So how could he have been possessed? Fernan says he's not really in the mood to explain and just tells him to watch the recording. He was hit directly in the head by the attack. Dozens of magic arrows pierced your body and a pillar of flames erupted from your feet. The fact that you're still standing here right now proves you were protected by demonic energy. Not to mention, he adds, I hate to admit it, but I had to burn through a lot of expensive items just to handle you. Kalbunder shoots back. If you're just here to complain about the price of the items you had to use, then say so. I'll pay for them. But Fernan goes full drama mode, saying the emotional trauma from that fight was immense. He squeals that during the battle, he constantly saw his life flash before his eyes. Kalbunder cuts in, telling him to just spit it out, and Fernan pulls out a contract. Yeah, that kind of contract. The kind that sounds like something a certain someone else would try. He tells Kalbunder that all of this can be forgotten if he signs the contract. It's just like that deal where someone ends up working until they drop dead. Kalbunder's like, what the hell is this? Is this slavery or something? The terms are excessive, to say the least. Fernan tells him to appreciate the kindness of his senior. He's trying to settle this without creating a big mess. But if Kalbunder refuses, well, Fernan will unfortunately have to forward the video to the Inquisitors. That group serves directly under the Emperor, and their goal has always been the eradication of all demons. Back when demons were the world's greatest threat, the Inquisitors held absolute power. Nowadays, with demons nearly extinct, they're more like a ceremonial organization. But even so, they still hold significant authority, and Ferdinand knows exactly what kind of people they are. They might have lost power, but they still hoard countless rare items, and they're just waiting for an excuse to return to relevance. So the moment a demon shows up, they'll rush in eager to kill. Kalbunder says he understands, but he truly had nothing to do with these demons. Ferdinand says he knows, but wouldn't it be a shame if he got expelled from the academy over that recording? Just imagine the rumors about the house of Marquis Kalbunder once people start saying his son made a pact with a demon. Obviously, that seals the deal. The contract gets signed. Ferdinand declares that from now on, Kalbunder is under his care. Sometime later, someone asks if it's really okay to settle things this way. It's Luina. She thinks they should inform the professors. This is getting too risky, but Ferdinand says it's not the right time yet. He's convinced based on Kalbunder's reaction that he never intended to be manipulated, transformed, or possessed by a demon. What they need to focus on now is that someone within the academy has the power to make that happen. And if this incident goes public, whoever's behind it will simply go into hiding, making it even harder to catch the real culprit. Luina immediately realizes what he's planning. He's going to investigate this himself. What she doesn't understand is why the targets would be students. Ferdinand says maybe it's because the academy is filled with the people who'll shape the future. Destroying this place would be like destroying the world's future itself. And she gets it. If that's the case, then if he ever needs help exterminating demons, he just needs to call on her. Ferdinand lights up. Finally, he can ask her for help without having to offer debt forgiveness. Soon enough, she'll realize that was the dumbest promise she could have made. With all that chaos going on, the mid-year exams were officially canceled, but the students still had to be evaluated somehow. So all the practical tests were swapped out for written exams. At this academy, the practical exams are usually the most valued, but of course there are always those nerds who spend the whole day buried in books, right? Now the so-called sword masters had to buckle down and actually study. The blonde kid was deep in his books when Alma spoke up, saying she's trying to make sense of what happened. It's weird. When that boy attacked him, she's sure he was giving off demonic energy or something close to it. But whoever or whatever that demon was, in the end, never fully appeared. Ain says maybe she's exaggerating. Maybe it wasn't a demon at all. But Alma insists it's impossible. She knows that energy, and she tells him to start preparing himself, because that demon is definitely going to show up again. Worse yet, she says he can be sure he'll be one of the targets. Ain asks, why me? Alma replies like it's obvious. He's the one carrying the spirit of the person who wiped out all the demons in the past. Their first move in trying to take over the world would be wiping out the army and bloodline. That's why, from now on, he better not let his guard down, not even for a second. Meanwhile, in the Revera's hall, Ferdinand is there, clutching his head in pain, and honestly, no one even knows why. Hyde asks what's wrong. Ah, here we go. More messages from the future. Apparently, the next test will involve survival skills. The students are going to be dropped into a southern forest for an entire week. Ferdinand seems to know exactly which forest they're talking about, and he thinks it's perfect because it contains a certain spiritual herb. Wait, plot twist. Turns out the so-called spiritual herb is actually a trap. It strips away all your protections. Cut to Ain entering a cave. Something, maybe a voice, asks if this is the place and warns that if he doesn't truly intend to find it, he never will. All right, he keeps going and finally he finds it. Bam, he comes face to face with a dragon. When the spiritual beast collapses, it reveals a mithril mine. Alma tells Ain not to leave anything behind. But let's be real, Ferdinand's probably going to end up with all of it. Mithril is a mana-blessed metal, and it's the only material that allows souls to live inside it. That's why the Emperor's soul is inside Ain's sword. Ferdinand saw all of this, and now his head's killing him. He's trying to wrap his brain around the idea of a metal that can store souls. And the moment he gets it, he wants it bad. Apparently, Luina was summoned too. She groans. The last time it was a potion, now it's a herb. He tries to brush it off, saying that Tanya was joking. But this time it's legit. He swears it's something valuable. She shouldn't worry about her classes. He's already lined up a ton of excuses for the professors, so she can come with him. He even offers to lower her family's debt. Still, she refuses. But one thing she can't do is miss class, especially not an entire week for something dumb like a spiritual herb. He sighs and says fine, if she won't come, he'll invite someone else. Just then, the door opens. A voice says it's been a while since he's seen Brother Ferdinand and wishes him a mana-filled day. Oh, who's this strange guy? Luina asks who he is. He introduces himself as Jace Vines. He steps in, all glowing and pure, and wishes her a mana blessing too. Clearly, though, he's here to speak with Ferdinand. He wants to know how life at the academy has been treating him. Luina immediately asks if they're close. Ferdinand smirks, saying she sounds surprised, and Jace adds that it makes sense, given the nature of their relationship. Luina says it just doesn't seem right. After all, this Jace guy is the saint of the Church of the Dragon. How is it that a holy man from a religious order and the greediest guy in the school are friends like this? Jace tells her she might not understand since she's not a mage. The Church of the Dragon god originally worshipped the dragons who gave magic to humankind. But over time, their worship shifted. Now, They revere man itself. Because of that, the church kept growing stronger, and nowadays it's basically a mage-run organization. That's why anyone who wants to become an archmage must be recognized by their church. Luina tells him to cut the chatter. She already knows all of that. What she doesn't understand is why he and Fernan are so close. And now everything starts to make sense. Jace explains that an organization dependent on mages definitely needs a lot of money, and Fernan Fillenberg just so happens to be the one who supports them the most. Countless church artifacts were created thanks to investments from that guy. That's why the church and Fernan are deeply connected. While the two of them are chatting away, Luina starts to realize once again this bastard solved everything with money. And now she's wondering how the hell Jace is even considered a saint. Jace gently asks her to ease up with the harsh words. It's not like they can refuse Fellenberg's help, right? When he sees she's only getting more worked up, he says he was just joking. But she's already walking away, saying she now fully understands the relationship between the two of them. He asks her to wait. They just met, but she says she's not getting involved in any of this. Jace waves goodbye, saying they'll talk again real soon. He blesses her with mana and closes the door. All the weirdos in the room turn their attention to Fernan, wanting to know why they were summoned. Our boy gets right to the point. He needs help collecting some herbs. Jace says spiritual herbs are interesting, sure, but Fernan better not get any ideas. He's keeping everything for himself. What Jace really wants to know is why Fernan's doing all this on the day of the training. With the abilities Fernan has, he could easily head out now and collect everything himself. Fernan answers that if it were that simple, he would have done it already. Unfortunately, he doesn't know the exact location. In theory, the prophecy gives enough hints. We're talking about a massive lake in an enormous forest. And not just that, there are 7 lakes in the southern forest. Fernan has been infusing mana into the lake beds, trying to locate the mana-based reaction tied to the herbs, but no luck so far. This is the kind of hidden cave you can't detect from outside. You literally have to stumble into it. Jace notes that the next survival test will take place right in that area. And navigating a place like that without being detected? Not easy. Fernan says not to worry. He registered himself this year as an assistant for the exam. Jace is puzzled. How is he, a second year, going to act as support staff for first years? Sure, he's older, but he's not that qualified. How did he convince the academy to let him in? Don't tell him it was the goth instructor, the one who always shuts down every scheme. Wait, he didn't even say, did he? Of course, he bribed her. Damn bastard. Jace says he already knows how the merchant gets things done. And hey, if Fernan's getting this involved, just pay him the right amount and Jace will join in too. Contract in hand. And boom, it's test day. Alma's telling Ain't they need to go over the plan one more time. They're here to find the spiritual herb hidden in one of the caves. Yep, Alma knows everything. She tells Ain't to make it look like everything's a coincidence. Just wander around and she'll guide him from there. But Ain's already noticed that Fernan's hanging around nearby too. Alma warns him to be careful. That bastard's probably looking to rob him of every coin he's got. But Ain's standing there like a curious puppy. Why is everyone so interested in Fernan? Alright, because he's loaded. Damn it. And look at him. He's already calling out to Fernan, all excited. Just then, the professor calls for everyone to get in position. Ain's a little disappointed he didn't get a chance to talk to him. Then the camera pans down to the ground, where we see a scarecrow, dressed in Fernan's clothes. Our boy bites his finger and collapses on top of the scarecrow. And boom, a Fernan 2.0 rises right up from it. Apparently, that was all Jace is doing. He casually tells Fernan not to worry. He's used this power plenty of times before. Heck, he even fooled the Pope with it once. Fernan finds that very hard to believe. The Pope is one of the most powerful mages alive. Jace admits, sure, it only worked for a few hours, not anything long-term. But hey, while the Pope was fooled, it worked like a charm. Fernan shrugs it off and says that's good enough. If the technique was strong enough to fool the legendary mage, it'll do just fine for his plan. No wonder that redhead bastard is one of the strongest in the Church of the Dragon. But then the demon's voice cuts in, asking what the hell is up with this church's magic, since magic was originally born from demons. And it was when this creature dared to utter such blasphemy that the war between the church and the monsters began. What Fernan's wondering now is whether Jace in the future is going to become one of Ain's allies. Jace tells him to come back in 5 hours at most. That's when the spell will wear off. Fernan thanks him and heads out, and bam, we're back near Ain't. Our boy knows that the only lake in this region is Lake Farden, and now it's someone else's turn. Yup, guess who steps in front of him again? Calbunder. For real? This guy again? Ain's stunned. The redhead, who only ever gets beat up, has returned. He even asks, hey, I'm telling you you're here again just to get smacked around. You do realize you don't stand a chance, right? Calbunder knows that's true, but clearly, someone made him come here. When he asks why, Fernan just responds that he clearly doesn't understand the situation he's in. All crooked, Calbunder says he still refuses to accept defeat. He's here for one more fight. Ain's just baffled. Wasn't getting stomped twice enough? You got wrecked with one hit. But Calbunder yells at him to knock it off. He doesn't care if he loses hundreds or even tens of thousands of times. He'll keep challenging Ink until he earns back his honor. Alma's impressed. At least the guy's got some spirit. He's got the heart to keep going. She even nudges Aint, asking if he hadn't noticed how much knightly pride this redhead actually has. Maybe he should accept the challenge. Aint sighs and says fine. Too bad the test today doesn't involve dueling. Kalbunder says that doesn't matter. He's not here for the school exam. He's here to fight for his honor. Even the sword spirit is shouting for Aint to go through with it. He can't run from this. This guy's looking to restore his dignity. He deserves the chance to win. Alma and the sword keep pressuring him while Aint is clearly losing his patience. Fernan, who he thought had already headed to the cave, is just lurking nearby watching everything. He mutters to himself, well, it's buying me the time I need. Exactly. Meanwhile, Fernan is off to take care of more important business. At the lake, he sees the barrier is already up. A barrier so strong that even if you were to dig a hole or blow open a crater, no one would hear or see anything inside. It's finally time. Time to use that spell he's been itching to try for a while now. He needs to find that mithril before Aint shows up. That's why he prepared his special summoning. Right then he cast it. Rise, my servant. The basis of this magic is to gather every useful technique. And the foundation of a merchant? Making absurd amounts of money. How that relates to summoning a golem? Who knows? But boom, there it is, standing tall. And from now on, its name is James. Alright James, let's get to work. We've got a lot of mithril to dig up. Meanwhile, back with Aint. Kalbunder is still blocking his way, saying he won't let him pass until he's defeated. Aint's exhausted. The redhead's already been pummeled and is now clinging to Aint's leg like a princess in a drama. Aint just begs him, for the love of everything, please stop acting like a child. But Kalbunder groans that he doesn't want to be doing this either. But unfortunately, he knows all too well what happens if he doesn't obey Fernan. When Aint hears that, he's confused and tells him to repeat it. And Kalbunder says, with a totally fake smile, that he's really enjoying doing this. In fact, it's exactly what he wants to be doing. He just loves interacting with people who crush his pride and destroy his future. That's why it would be great if Aint would go ahead and beat him down again. At that moment, Aint just snaps and kicks him, asking what kind of weird kid is this? Kalbunder goes flying, lands flat on his butt, then stands up like it's nothing, saying, yeah, I am weird. But Aint is already gone. Kalbunder checks the time and remembers. Fernan only asked for 1 hour. Looks like he managed to stall Aint for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Good grief, what an exhausting guy. And even after all that, Alma is still nagging him, saying he shouldn't have dismissed the will of a knight like that. Aint just replies that the rules clearly said they weren't allowed to fight during this training. Besides, he was the one who told him to come to this cave in the first place. He's curious to see what's inside. Alma tells him to relax. Whatever's in there isn't something that can be stolen. Very soon he'll get it. There's something extremely rare inside. Something that's going to change his life. All he has to do is take a look down there. And when he does, Aint's expression changes. There was the spiritual herb he'd been looking for. But deeper inside the cave, someone else was already celebrating. Yep, our boy Fernan, along with his trusty golem, scooping up all the mithril. Aint says it's great they found the herb, but how the hell are they supposed to mine all this with a dragon hanging around? Alma says she wasn't expecting a sea dragon to show up now either. But hey, they're already here, so now they have to deal with it. Aint asks if she expects him to go charge at it. Alma tells him that sure, if he wants to end up as lunch, go right ahead. He needs to understand a creature like that is way above his current level. But right at that moment, bonk, a tiny stone hits the dragon. His eyes slowly turn and lock on them. Then it rises. Alma instantly realizes things just got a lot worse. But Aint, he's just standing there, completely certain. Now that the dragon woke up, it was going to be like in that video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.